Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. We're excited to have you all here with us. My name is Ingrid, and before we kick off, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Firstly, this webinar is expected to run for approximately 45 minutes, including time for a questions and answer session at the end. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible during this time, so please drop any questions you have into the chat box on your screen. Today we have a fantastic lineup of speakers who will be sharing their insights on the topic of artificial intelligence in recruitment. We'll start with some introductions from our panelists, followed by discussion of our topic, and finally we'll wrap up with a question and answer session. So with no further ado, I'll pass over to Raymond to take it from here. Raymond, can you start with introductions first?
Ingrid, thank you so very, very much. We thought that there was no other thing to do than to use AI and video AI in order to introduce today's panel. And you'll probably be able to tell from the word revolutionize in the title of today's webinar. We also used it to help design the title of the webinar. So for those who don't know, my name's Raymond Penny. I'm CEO and founder of Kyloe Partners, and I am really delighted to be with the two M's today, but I will ask them to introduce themselves one at a time. So Martin, would you care to lead off?
Sure, thanks, Raymond. So my name's Martin Redstone. I'm the founder of PeopleBots, PPL Bots. It is a conversational AI and consultancy and AI strategy business. So I work with recruiters on helping them to understand and implement artificial intelligence.
Wonderful. And I think you've been speaking about AI before AI maybe even existed or became the trend.
Before it was a twinkle in your eye, Raymond. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Matt, would you care to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Raymond. Lovely to be here. Firstly, I should say that I am a human. Last time I checked, at least. Matthew Holmes. I am COO of Recruit One-to-One Group. We are very much in the tech space, SAP specific, global recruiter. Like to think of ourselves in the very leading edge of tech adoption. So super interested in this topic.
And up for an award, I believe.
We are. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, we're up for best recruitment company in our bracket. APSCO Awards, only announced yesterday.
Fantastic. Well done. In preparation for the webinar, I ran a poll, as you do, and I went to LinkedIn and I asked LinkedIn some questions. And as part of that, I discovered that 5% of the people, I only sent it to my contacts on LinkedIn, and 5% of people think that the recruiters are doomed because of AI. I looked into who they were. One is a marketing guy. Well, I think we could probably say that he might be slightly more doomed than we are. And the other one was someone who's a systems administrator for an ex-client of ours. And it would certainly make his job easier if recruiters were replaced. Amongst the others, we had some who were really keen to see it as a partner, as an assistant, and are using it already. And then others are looking to be able to use it in a way that is there and will enhance their efficiency, whatever that means. But we didn't have anyone who was scared, so that's a good thing. There will be a poll later on in today's webinar, and I hope you'll take part. So I think there's no better way to start than maybe if we could set the scene, and there's no better person to set the scene, I think, than Martin, because you've been setting the scene for years. What's AI?
What is AI? That's such a great question. I think that to set the scene, we probably need to realize that AI 6 months ago became really sexy, and it became really sexy because OpenAI launched ChatGPT. And ultimately, what that meant was that the layperson, the non-technologist, the non-geeky kind of nerdy coder could now access a large language model and just see kind of how powerful a natural language-based tech generator is. And it's really cool. It's super cool. And that's why we've seen, 1 million users in 5 days, 10 million users in 5 weeks, and now I think looking at their latest kind of web traffic, they get like 1.8 billion users on their website, something ridiculous like that. So it's exciting stuff, and you can tell by the amount of people that are using it. So So what is AI? It's a very, very good question. There are lots and lots of different types of AI out there because we hear now about generative AI. And obviously I've been going on about conversational AI for some time, and we've got optimization AI and vision AI and all those kind of wonderful things. But ultimately, what it is underneath is a machine learning algorithm. And all machine learning means is how does a computer learn how to do something? And that can be self-learning through accessing the internet, working out how the data works, etc., etc. It can be supervised, so it tries to do something and it needs literally a human supervisor to go in and tell it whether it was right or wrong. And ChatGPT is a mixture of both of those ultimately. And so when you put that learning model underneath some kind of interaction, whether that be conversational, whether that be image, so generating images through a natural language input, whether that be something that you just showed on your video, so putting a natural language input in which creates a video, all those kind of things. So that's why you can layer it across lots of different modes, lots of different medias, because it's the way that it understands how to push something as the output from the input ultimately. I don't want to get too in detail and too into kind of the technicalities behind it, but setting the scene, I think everybody's ridiculously excited about this. There's a lot of people that, as you said, have adopted it. There's a lot of people that have played with it. There's a lot of people that don't understand it, and a lot of people that need help in understanding how they can use it within their recruitment operations. So that's why we're doing what we're doing today. But we've been 6 months in. It's really exciting, but there's so much more to come. Every single day there's loads of stuff being released, so it's really exciting.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I probably should have said at the beginning, if you're not following Mr. Holmes on LinkedIn, then you should, because I think he's certainly led the way, as far as I can see, in taking grip of AI and looking to use it within his business. And he's forever updating us all on how it can be used. So, Matthew, would you be able to, from a recruitment perspective, from a leader in a recruitment organization, could you give us a feel for how you're going to use it, or how you are using, or how you'd like to use it?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the plug, Raymond. That's appreciated. So I guess to follow on from Martin, I'm one of those who jumped down the rabbit hole with this. I'm not a technologist by trade. I'm sales and I'm recruitment, but I saw the potential of the tool really early on, right? And I think it's fair to say that we're so early that anyone who says that they can predict where this is going is probably telling a lie. I think it's worth mentioning that this comes quite hot on the heels of the automation boom that we saw in recruitment, which in itself was revolutionary, right? What automation brought was an ability to execute a series of process steps. If a certain trigger happens, then a certain task or a certain action should follow. Right? What AI does, which is the new, the sexy, the funky bit, is AI introduces an element of creativity into that. So whereas automation will complete in a very prescriptive manner, will complete a task that you tell it to complete, what AI rather will do is AI will consider its training data sets, and it will determine, using its probability ability to predict what is the best output, text output, that it can create given the parameters in the prompt input that you're giving it. So this introduces just a world of creativity. Now, how we're using it, I'd love to say as a business that we've got a fully functioning industrialized enterprise solution, but we don't, because I don't believe one exists. I
don't think anyone's got one.
Unless someone tells me otherwise. So what we're encouraging our guys here to do is to think of the tool as a co-pilot, is to use it for everything, anything that involves the creative generation of text. So job ads, marketing, mail merges, anything in this sphere, and I'm not saying replace the humans with it. I'm saying amplify and improve, complement what the humans are doing. But we're kind of brand new at looking at different use cases throughout the business, such as, for example, using it as a prism through which we can analyze text. So analyze the text to identify sentiment or tone, or to is a particular piece of work displaying a series of criteria or characteristics that I would like to see? And if not, tell me how it can be improved. So we're still, we're still kind of floundering around in the dark like everybody else here, but we're just doing it with bucketfuls of enthusiasm.
Absolutely. And I think that what we've found at Kyloe is we've got a client advisory board, and we've got one in America. And we took the topic earlier on in the year, 2 months into AI. We've got a question about what's your LinkedIn handle. We'll provide all of that at the end so that you're able to go and follow Matthew. We took it to our client advisory board, and as part of our client advisory board, we said, right, guys, where are you on the journey? Where are you on AI? And it really was quite polarizing, and it identified to us there are different types of businesses. There are businesses where the leaders want to get on with it. Mr. Holmes, Recruit One-to-One, and they are less risk averse, and they want to make the most of the opportunity. They may not get it right every time. They're willing to try and fail fast. Then we have some who are maybe larger or in different parts of recruitment who they fear the unknown. I think they are risk averse, and they don't know where to start, or they're not entirely sure how it would fit into the corporate governance. They may already be tied into SLAs or tied into data protection rules or data privacy rules that they're not sure how this fits into. So I think they fit at both ends of the client. I think if I put them in, if I look at it in a different way, there are some that think if they're too slow, then that'll be the demise. And there are others who think they'll win because the people who went early will go to jail. And I think they're the two ends. So that sort of led us to think about risk profiles. And in particular, one of the takeaways I'd like people to maybe take from today's session, because we said we'd give you practical advice, is for you to consider as a business your risk profile. And are you shiny, let's go and have a go? Everyone has a ChatGPT or a Google Bard access, and use it where you will. Or you have a more constrained process. But what I think is something you can't probably do is just leave your teams to work it out, because you may end up, I think, in the world where you have a project that's trying to design a horse, you might end up with something that looks a little bit more like a camel by the time, and you won't be able to put the genie back in the bottle. So at the very least, bring your leadership teams together and discuss it and identify where you are on that risk profile, and then what you should do next. And we'll come back to that as we go through. What we've also suggested is that with that, for recruitment companies, you start to think of what are the guardrails that you're going to put in place for your business, and make sure that people in your organization are clear, and particularly clear about what they are allowed to do or what you would encourage them to do. And in particular, I guess we've all been through the great GDPR world and everything that came with GDPR. So I would ask maybe everyone, and maybe Martin, this is something you can speak about, to go and have a look at your data privacy and your data policies, and Google it or search it and see if you can find AI in it. Because if you don't mention it, I think you probably should, whether it's positive or negative. Is that something, Martin, you've seen, or something you'd advise people to do?
I think so. I think actually what's interesting is I'm getting more and more questions about AI policies in as standalone. So obviously, as you said, the whole kind of great GDPR thing, we started to have data processing addendums and cookie policies and all those kind of lovely things that ended up kind of bolting on to all of our compliance. And people are now asking me about standalone AI policies. And I think that the starting point is, like you said, having a look at your current policies and seeing whether AI is already in there. If it's not, then I would suggest seeking counsel from either industry bodies or legal representatives on how to do this, because they should be the people that you go to first, because that's what they're there for. And if not, get in touch with somebody like myself and I'll help you navigate that field as well. But you certainly need to start now. As you said, whatever your risk profile, this is moving quickly, and therefore people are going to start playing with it, whether that be under your jurisdiction or against your jurisdiction. So you need to make sure that your policies and therefore your engagement with your employees around it is correct as well.
Yeah, and I would say, as someone who sits here, I would like to say we're ahead of the game. We're absolutely not. AI doesn't get mentioned in our terms and conditions. And having ploughed through yours earlier, Matthew, I know it doesn't come up in yours either, or the ones I could find. And therefore, I would urge everybody, hey, put something in to put some guardrails on it. Another area is declaring something so that you're going to get that awkward candidate, maybe particularly in IT, maybe if you get into legal recruitment, who's going to be looking for it. So they might have an opinion, hey, I don't want I want all my data to be forgotten. I want to have my right to be forgotten that GDPR allows, and I don't want my data to be held or used to train a large language model. So I would also encourage everybody to make sure that they look at their data privacy statement and they make a statement there about whether you use it in with candidate information or with other personal data. And within that, you have a statement. You have an explicit statement, and you put it in there. Is that something you're looking at? Yeah.
Jump in there, Raymond?
Yeah, please.
Because I think a lot of this, it can be a little bit daunting to think, well, GDPR was hard work for everybody, consulting with legal counsels and DPOs and all sorts, and trying to get your house in order there. There are some quick things that people can just do without a policy. As a good starting point is, do not share PII, personally identifiable information, with the tool.
Beautiful.
Don't do it until you're confident that your policies are sufficient, because things that you could inadvertently fall foul of are client confidentiality provisions here, loads of elements of the GDPR framework and provisions. There are some things just to steer clear of until you're comfortable that you can do that safely. Then just don't do it.
I think that's really wise. And if you're within your organizations, if you haven't had a training session or a training session to remind people, I think that sort of getting those guardrails to say, we don't use this to do anything with personal identified information. We don't put candidate information in, or if you do, you're able to describe it and you know what your policy is. But I think being silent is probably something that now that we're 6 months down, and I can't remember when in November it came out, but the fact that it's 6 months and now we're doing amazing things is truly unbelievable. Carry on.
Oh no, I was going to agree with everything. I don't even think it needs a training session. I think that we should be doing exactly like Matt said, and on the next team meeting, literally just setting out the scene and saying that we haven't talked about this. Here's just some quick do's and don'ts. And I don't think it needs any more than that, just as a starting point.
Yeah, and I think that's a base. I do have the random question, and I'll put it to you both, which is, if people are putting data into ChatGPT or Bard or insert other large language models exist, who owns the data in those models? Anyone know?
Well, I think that's the problem, is that not many people do know. So, and that's why you need to be, defensive and protective of your data, because most people don't know. Exactly the same as when you go on to any random app on the web, whether it be Monday.com or Trello or Notion or all those tools that people use, who owns that data? So the question, the specific answer is that OpenAI own that data, but you should always make sure that that the answer to that question if you're using any of this, and that's why most organizations do have a good kind of data security process in place. So if you do want to use online tools, you have to go through a proper authorization process to get access to those tools.
No, I think Yeah.
Sorry, I'd
Please.
just add on to
Okay.
that. If we've got anybody on the call who sits within risk and compliance,
Oh yeah, please join in.
then they'll be very familiar with reviewing what appear to be horrifically complex DPAs, which set out who are the processors, who are the sub-processors, who are the data controllers, and those agreements are required to answer questions like that, Raymond, and they're just not in place currently with people's interactions with ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. So I think we're going to do a poll. I hope this is going to work. We're going to do a poll for the people that are on the call today. How would you describe your risk attitude to AI? Are you open to risk and trying things early? Are you proceeding with caution? Would you rather wait until somebody else has done it, or you don't know yet? So if you were able to fill that in, we'll give you maybe 20-25 seconds to work out which one you are, and then we'll reflect on that as we go through. So thank you very much, and the results will be with us very soon, at the point that Ingrid is able to add things up. As you know, for anyone that works with Kyloe, we do pick Scandinavian names based on the Norwegians coming over to Orkney and doing their thing there back in the 10th and 12th century. So we do tend to go Scandinavian names. So the results are, okay, we have, oh yeah, way to go. We've got just about half the people who are open to risk and trying things early. We've maybe got the other half who they're going to proceed with caution, and they'd rather hold off until we know more. We've got one person that doesn't know yet. Hopefully they'll be able to work out where they put themselves in those three buckets by the time we finish today. So thank you very much. Interesting. 50-50 split, which I think is how I've seen it in every poll that we've tried, and I've seen other polls. So Martin, what was it? Tech stacks, great words, tech stack. Everybody loves to speak about tech stack. Martin, what's an AI tech stack look like?
Wow. Okay. So I think I don't think there's one answer to fit everybody. I think it depends on the type of business you are, whether you're perm, temp, contractor. I think it also depends on who you are within that business as well. I think what I'm seeing, if we, the whole point of the conversation we're having today is around generative AI, which what Matt was talking about earlier around the fact that we are enhancing creativity utilizing this kind of technology. So for me, that sits more comfortably within marketing type of roles. So the whole point I see of utilizing AI within marketing is to help enable the recruiters and the sales kind of teams, the commercial teams to be able to have content that they can access in order to enable the speed of their process. So for me, tech stack in marketing for AI is ChatGPT Pro, because you get access to GPT-4, you get access to speed, and also when the Americans wake up in the afternoon, you still get access to the actual system. So ChatGPT Pro, and then I actually, interestingly, for generative art, so we talk about Midjourney and DALL-E and all those kind of things. My actual preference is Bing Chat for generating art. So if you haven't used it, go on there, select creativity mode, and start trying to create images on there. It's free, and it's as good as, it's actually probably better, I think, than, even though it uses DALL-E, it seems to be better in the output than DALL-E. So
when's the last time you used Bing for anything other than that?
It's so funny. My kind of hardware stack is Microsoft. So I run on Microsoft like laptops and things, but I've always had a preference for using Google. And now I just have gone back to the default of Bing, and it's just, it's funny how one little thing can create such a change in your working attitude. So those are the two. When it goes into, and we'll add the links kind of later on. So those are the two that I think make up the foundations of your tech stack. I think after that, we're seeing a lot of vendors creating things, and it's dependent again on whether you're a Google firm, whether you're a Microsoft firm, because they're all creating different kind of AI assistants within their productivity tools and their office tools. Again, you didn't mention, but I'll mention Canva. So a lot of people use Canva. They now have AI assistants in there. So it's not about having a specific tech stack. It's actually looking at your tech stack and seeing actually what AI improvements are being made there, because we're just seeing now more and more people, more and more organizations and technologies are adding some kind of AI assistant into their technology. So Tableau, Salesforce, obviously same business nowadays. So, all those kind of pieces of technology are now adding in AI assistants. So it's not about restarting and rehashing your stack from scratch. It's about actually having a look at what benefits your current vendors are also providing as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else you've got, Matthew?
No, I'd agree. I mean, you look at Microsoft Copilot, and what's coming there.
Oh, can't wait. That's going to be amazing. I hope.
Well, I think we all desperately hope and expect that it will be, and I'm sure it will be. But I agree with Martin. A lot of these tools and applications are bringing in their own AI products. So how do you maximize the benefit you get from these? Well, you possibly come back to automation and APIs and integrations, and you look at some everlasting use cases within recruitment. People aren't updating notes properly on a CRM. Right? That's at the root of all evils across recruitment. Yeah. You suddenly then imagine a scenario where your meeting notes are transcribed for you and actions are extrapolated, and via whatever automation or API you've got with your CRM, you've got it coming straight onto the CRM. So it's these kind of things which are just going to naturally emerge now, and you're either going to adopt them and level the playing field if you're on the smaller side, or you're not, and either you're going to get caught up or you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone knows now that, AI is not going to replace people, 100% of the time, but it's certainly going to replace the people that aren't using AI. In a roundabout way, so I think if you're not using AI, you're going to get leapfrogged, because it's going to help you do more with less, just in the same way that automation has as well. But, you both made a very, very good point. Everyone is getting excited about Copilot. And I think that if I was in charge of the Merriam-Webster dictionary and I was choosing a word of the year, so far that would be it. I don't think I have said that word. I mean, I don't think I've said that word ever, apart from when I'm taking a flight, but and yet every week it seems to be the word that everybody is using continuously, to the point where it almost becomes meaningless because it's being used so much. But the key part, if you are looking forward to using things like Copilots and natural language assistants that are really coming into play soon, the key part of that is data. And when people say to me, do you think that they're going to be the standard within the next 2 years? I say, actually, probably not, because most data in an ATS or a CRM is a load of rubbish. And so you've got to spend the next 2 to 3 years cleaning that data, and not only cleaning that data, but making your data processes, things like adding meeting notes, things like making sure that you're tracking your activity, and all those kind of really core recruitment practices. You've got to make sure that they're standard and they're happening, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to take advantage of that kind of technology.
That makes sense. Well, I was at the Bullhorn Engage in Boston 2 weeks ago, and as part of Art Pappas, who's I think he's now president of Bullhorn, in his keynote, he made the same point, that AI may enable less well-performing recruiters to catch up to your top-performing recruiters. It may not actually make your best recruiters 10 times better. So it was a good point. And he also introduced what will be coming down the line, Bullhorn Copilot. So I think another instance of Copilot being out there. So I would probably just add one more tool in there. I spotted it by mistake in Power BI. For those that use Power BI, there's now a thing called Power BI Narrator, and you can point it at a graph and it will write this is up because of blah, this is down because of blah, and it fills the box that you give it without any thought. Those words that you add to your Power BI presentations, whether it's your QBRs with your clients to say, hey, you've given us this many vacancies and we've given you more CVs, but your interview ratio is down, it'll start to write that story for you. So if you haven't done it, it's really a poor icon design, but it's one that you should try and find. That's Power BI Narrator. I'd also say one last thing in your tech stack would be sign up for an AI newsletter. If you don't sign up for it, you'll get lost. There's one called TLDR AI, and it keeps me up to date every day. And it's got so much stuff in it, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing. There's a few newsletters that I've signed up to. TLDRs, actually, I've been signed up to them for quite some time, and they only kind of recently launched their AI one. But I was going to say that every day there's new products coming out. So there are actual websites that you can go to now where you can find the latest AI products that have been released. I mean, today I was playing with PDF.ai. I said I was kind of reading this kind of big paper earlier, and it was written by kind of some big kind of scientists in Israel and Meta and Google and all those kind of people. There's like several of them all come together to write this paper. And as much as I love AI and I get it, I'm not that intelligent to read all these kind of mathematical kind of theories and everything. So uploaded it into PDF AI and it gives you a lovely chat interface next to it. Yeah, well, not even that, but actually you can almost converse with the PDF and what do you mean by this, and talk to me about the experiment, and so it's those kind of tools are just invaluable, just kind of by helping you in your everyday life. So I'll ask the Kyloe team to share a link to one of those AI tool repositories as well.
Yeah, I think we've got one called chatbase.co, which will interpret a PDF you give it, and you can ask it questions, which is too clever for me to fully understand. So with all this clever stuff, what sort of use cases is there in recruitment? We've got recruiters on this session. What are the sort of use cases that we can do? So in any order, up to you guys.
Well, I think there's a question that's come in that might be useful to kind of answer as part of this anyway. So I'll probably leave it over to Matt. So to talk about kind of how he might have embedded some of the AI tools into their processes, because that might give us some idea around use cases as well.
Yeah, I mean, AI tools that we use is ChatGPT, really, other than what's being introduced and embedded within the applications. I think use cases is an interesting one, because it's very hard to find a part of your business where there isn't a use case if you sit down and have a think about it. Everything to date has been text generation, which is why, Martin, you said marketing outreach, that's the natural home there, I guess, if you need some polished, shiny text. But what we're starting to see in the on the horizon now is tools or plugins or embedded functionality within ChatGPT that will allow you to interact with your data.
Yeah, here's you going back to code interpreter. I lost mine.
I
had it and then it's gone.
I desperately want it. So I think that's going to be. I think that's where a whole new realm of use cases, practical, easy to realize use cases are going to emerge. If you look at recruitment companies, we sit on vast volumes of data, and we use very little of it, and we're not big, and I'm generalizing here, but we're not data scientists. We're not big on the data analysis as a rule. So, but understanding, interacting with that data, what insights can we glean from it? I think that's a really fascinating area, and then that opens up use cases for your sales operations, and it opens up use cases across finance for sure. Yeah. But I mean, immediate low-level use cases, I'd say, translation, your Boolean searches, taking a bit of information and using that to generate, for example, your job ads, your e-shots, your, qualifying questions, understanding complex topics, reframing it in a different way. Those type of things. That's where you should be starting before we kind of look at, well, how do we bridge the gap between where we are now and something enterprise, because there's a hell of a lot in between.
Yeah, I've been classifying those things as almost the boring bits, and the boring bits that people aren't very good at, that you're always a little bit shy of. How does your team summarize why they should go and work for insert client name, insert client location, doing a particular job? It was down to the ability of your consultants to be able to impart that in an enthusiastic way, in a knowledgeable way, but you hired them because they were good at talking, not good at writing. And therefore you end up in a scenario that some of those things can be now ChatGPT or other large language models are going to be able to do that, and then somebody can review it. So certainly I think the boring bits where you have writer's block on what should your next sales email be to the person who's blanked you 3 times in order to see if you can get something.
I'll chuck in if I can, Raymond. It's just popped into my head. We talked earlier around the kind of the privacy concerns here, and being very, very careful of what you're putting into the tool. The future, no doubt, will be large language models being run locally, trained on specific companies' data sets, and whether that is building from scratch or using something a bit more open source, who knows? But as soon as you get to that point, then you can, in theory, you can put anything in these things because they sit within your, they sit within your company. And I think that's when, again, you'll see a kind of a whole new level. I
think if you've seen the video previews for Microsoft Copilot, and if you haven't, I would say go and find it. Maybe we'll put the link in. You say to Teams in the morning, "Hi, has anything happened with ABC Limited? What's the latest?" And it'll go and pull emails and Teams messages and PowerPoint presentations and telephone dictations, pull them all together and say, "Hey, this is what it is." So imagine saying, Matthew, you going, "Okay, I'm about to do your weekly one-to-one. Martin, this is what you did last week. I know what's happened. Now let's coach each other on what we should do next as the next best action based on that information from all those disparate places have been pulled together."
Yeah, and that's the point of getting your data intact in order to enable these kind of tools, because they're not going to provide you with the right level of expectation without that data behind it. Because ultimately, what a Copilot is a large language model, your own large language model, layered over your own data graph, and all of your data kind of so you do need to get your data intact in order to be able to take advantage of that kind of technology.
I probably as we're doing well on time, I think I've got a point. What's your views on when candidates start to use it?
I actually just wrote a blog about this yesterday.
You wrote it, or ChatGPT wrote it?
I wrote it actually because I'm totally open and honest about how I work with ChatGPT. So I will always ask for a structure, but I will fill in the gaps because and I've spent time finessing prompts on ChatGPT and asking it to and helping kind of create a prompt around my writing style and what have you. But it's still, I'm very conversational in the way that I write, so I actually tend to dictate a lot of the content that I write. So I'll ask for a structure and some ideas, but I won't, it won't draft the full thing for me. I draw the line there. But there's no harm in getting something drafted either, as long as you don't leave it as the final output. Anyway, I digress. So for me, is it cheating or is it a wake-up call to recruiters? Because ultimately, what you could do now, you can throw a job advert into ChatGPT, you can throw your CV into ChatGPT, and you can say, create me a new CV for this job, create me a cover letter for this job. And I saw yesterday, a tech vendor launching this whole text classifier. We can see whether candidates are creating their stuff with ChatGPT. Their percentages were a little bit staggering around accuracy, and I don't believe them. But at the same time, why? Because ultimately, what you're now saying is, if we're asking, somebody to set a maths test, we're going to chastise them for using a calculator. It's the same thing. I actually think for us, it's a wake-up call to say, actually, is this now showing us that with something out there that levels the playing field, that we need to start thinking about retiring the CV and the cover letter and think about a different way to assess candidates. There's that piece. And the other piece, and again, we see all these cool tools coming out. I can have on my iPad running next to me, a lovely piece of ChatGPT technology, along with other tools where it can listen into the conversation if I'm having a video interview, and it can provide answers that I can just reel off, from there. And so, again, do we need to think about changing the way that we interview people, changing the fact that we need to bring people in face to face again, all those kind of things. So there's lots of considerations to bear in mind when it comes to candidates using it. But please, please, please don't consider it as cheating or somebody being given an unfair advantage, because ultimately, surely we want to hire people that are comfortable using the most up-to-date tools in order to enhance the way that they do things. I think it was Steve Jobs that said, hire a lazy person because they'll always find the easy way to do something.
In a skill-short market, if it helps improve the skills and helps things. Are you seeing things, Matthew, or what's your view?
Anecdotally, it's out there.
Yeah.
The cat's out of the bag, and that the degree to which you're likely to see that will probably be dictated by the demographic that you recruit, no doubt. Yeah, I guess there's two approaches there. We can find ways to try to block it and identify it and to chastise, as Martin's saying, or we can rethink how we evaluate candidates. And I think the latter has to be the more sustainable route forward. How we do that, I don't know. That's a question for everybody on this call to try to fathom, because there are some new USPs hidden in there. No doubt, if you can find a way to do this effectively, and you can shout about it and monetize it, then there we are. You go for it. You found something that other people aren't able to do.
Yeah, we're in the middle of some recruiting, and we've had some cover letters that are classic ChatGPT ones, because if you Google Kyloe, or if you ChatGPT Google partners, they say we're a Salesforce consultancy, which obviously we're not. We only work with Bullhorn, and it was 10 out of 10 for using ChatGPT, 0 out of 10 for actually reading it to check it made sense. So probably picking up on something you just said, Matthew, what I wanted to introduce here on today was Kyloe don't know the answers, but Kyloe, and one of the questions is, do you mind telling me how you've integrated AI into your CRM? What we're pulling together is a thing that we're going to call Kyloe's AI Whisperer. And Kyloe's AI Whisperer is something that's going to be, it's not a co-pilot, it's something that will work in the background, and it'll help complete parts of your CRM using generative AI. For example, we've got it working so a job gets added, it will take the job title, take the job spec, pass it through a piece of middleware, go to ChatGPT, bring it back in the right format, remove bias, use the right tone of voice for the company, and add it back into the right field, into Bullhorn, so that when you go publish, off it goes. Somebody's got to read it. And equally, it'll do good interview questions. And we're looking for a group of like-minded customers that can come together, or anyone who's using Bullhorn, that can try and work out the path forward for what AI can do, because I don't think anyone knows the answers. And I think it's going to be a collaborative thing that's going to help us with the forming of a set of prompts that will be useful to whisper in the ear of your recruitment consultants to help them with some of those efficiencies for the things that they didn't have. So what I would say is, I was going to say DM me, but then you'd have to go find me on Twitter or through LinkedIn, or email me directly, say, hey, I'd like to be part of it. And it's something that we're going to pick up and run with over the couple of months. So we are now at the point where we've got some Q&A. We've got a question from Nick that says, Matthew, do you mind telling me how you've integrated AI into your CRM? I think that Matthew is part of our AI Whisperer group, and that should help with that. So I'm hoping that we can have more people that join in, and if we're willing to do it, we'll suggest how it can be done, but we'll do it with that low impact method. So we're not taking your database and giving it to ChatGPT and wait and see what comes back. We're doing particular use cases.
Yeah. So in short, Nick, if when I know,
if you'd like to be part of it,
I'll be happy to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. We've got another question that says, which areas would you consider to be high risk if your business was starting out using AI?
I'd say the PII, the GDPR.
Yeah.
areas is probably the highest risk that jumps out. There's just too much uncertainty and too much lack of transparency and accountability around that transfer of sensitive data. So I would very much steer clear of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's two risk areas for an organization. There's the data risk and there's the brand reputation risk as well.
Yeah,
so I think that's why I keep talking about marketing being the custodian of this kind of technology, because you're going to allow recruiters to create their own messaging, their own content, and it's all going to be off brand as well. So I think that marketing needs to start creating some really good prompts that keep things on brand, and then they can be the custodian of the brand ultimately as well.
No, I think that's something I've only recently learned about, feeding it enough of your own writing style, which for me is grammatical errors and spelling mistakes, in order for it to be able to help you more accurately. Now, we have got 2 minutes left, so I wanted to go to a conclusion session. We will come back to other questions that we've got. We'll try and come back to them and maybe do a written response if we can. But I just wanted to get some conclusions and maybe get some takeaways. So what I wanted to suggest was, please don't ignore this. Please go in with your eyes open. Have done it deliberately, not have it happen to you. If you can, consider your risk profile. Are you right at the front? You want to try things, you want to fail fast, or do you wish to wait and see? But again, decide and then apply that to your policies, to your internal education, and update whether it's your terms and conditions, whether your data privacy policies, etc., to make sure that it reflects it. And therefore set some guardrails within your organization that everyone understands. I guarantee you will have many, many, many individual instances of ChatGPT or Bard running that's got information in it already. And unless you can start putting a cap around it, if somebody does a right for information request, then yeah, I haven't even thought about how that might work. And then I think maybe a last bit, AI products have been in the recruitment space now for years. They've been there in different forms, but this one has really caught the imagination and does things differently because it invents new stuff. Let's make the most of it. And in my opinion, it's an assistant that's going to help us all become better and more efficient as we go, and we should be grabbing it. I'd like to a big thank you to Matthew, to Martin for today, for the time, for the prep time, for the discussion, for the open discussions. Please follow them both on LinkedIn or whichever other social medias you can track them down on. And thank you everyone so very much for attending today's session.
Thanks for having me, Raymond.
Yep.
No problem. Cue Ingrid.
Sorry to cut you off. We're out of time. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this webinar insightful and gained valuable knowledge on artificial intelligence in recruitment. I know I learned a lot from it. We covered a lot of ground, but if you still have questions or would like to discuss anything further, please don't hesitate to reach out to Kyloe. We'll be more than happy to assist you.